Don't believe the memers. The Blair Witch is real, and she's a veteran of the posting wars on the dark web, so we salute her. This is the Pod People. I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I have your one-way ticket to the drone zone.
I'm Ben Sheets, and I am the world's worst drone pilot, actually.
Yo, 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 to all my cool, hip fellow kids out there. I'm Deep Web, Dark 69, 420, 666, over 9,000 cool guy, internet supreme man who knows all about the internet. Cleveland Mosier. God, I need to wash my mouth out with soap after saying that.
Just take a drink, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you're right.
And we're excited to be joined again for the second week in a row by the Blair Witch herself, Erin Valusek. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you. Yes, the Blair Witch has entered the chat.
Blair Witch is online. And yeah, that's what we're talking about this week. This is part 2 of our Blair Witch special. We're going to be talking about the 2016 sequel / soft reboot of the Blair Witch Project, just called Blair Witch, written by Simon Barrett and directed by Adam Wingard, and starring a bunch of people that it doesn't matter what their names are. And it's about some more kids who go out into the woods, but this time they have a drone, but turns out the Blair Witch can make those not work too. And all I have to say about this movie, you guys, is Blair Witch, more like Blairly watchable. Am I right?
Heyo. Good one.
I'm glad you didn't say gayer witch, because, like, I wish it was.
Expound upon that. Let's get right in there.
I wish the movie had more LGBT moments, or just moments that I liked.
The Blair Witch could have been the next Babadook.
Honestly, though, is the Babadook not the gayer witch?
Yes.
Wow.
You got
makes you
me
think.
there.
Makes
Damn.
you think, doesn't it?
Maybe.
Well, I think it is important. We talked about this some on the last episode, and I just mentioned it, but it has to be emphasized that this movie is from the same writer-director team who brought us such legitimately great films as You're Next and The Guest, which we just talked about a couple of months ago on the show. Legitimately fantastic, creative, fun horror films. And then they made this one.
Now, I wasn't here for the Guest episode, but I do want to say I did watch it, and then I couldn't do the recording with you guys. And I adore that film. Thought it was great as well. Like fully agree with that statement. Like, it's a fucking gem. Wild that it's the same people.
I was really baffled by that, to the point where on Friday, I decided to put on the commentary track and listen to it while I worked in the background.
You did end up doing it. Nice.
So I do have a few insights on that.
Excellent. I'm glad somebody decided to do it.
There's a lot of good material in that.
I'm sure we can get into that.
First off, I want to say that this movie, oddly enough, was kind of something of a passion project for them. They started in the mumblecore scene. So one of their first collaborations was A Horrible Way to Die, which was all shot on the same DV camera that's used by Dark Web 666 in the movie, actually. But after that, they went on to do the VHS movies. They were part of those movies. And they were
just one of them, I think. I don't think
both.
They do have multiple segments?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they weren't super happy with how those turned out, so they wanted to do found footage right, in their words.
Oh,
with this, and
well, they did it wrong.
They kind of missed the mark there, didn't they?
They did it really wrong.
So interesting to me that you say passion project, because after we watched the film, we got into a pretty lengthy discussion about whether this felt earnest or not. And we decided to do some more research on that and find some behind the scenes. There are slim pickings, but there are some. Everything that I saw put me under the impression that they could have given two shits. Anything with Adam Wingard, like, he looked so bored, like, in everything. Like, there's a sequence where they tour the set for the house, and he was like, yeah, I think the original is shot, like, somewhere in...
Yeah, he's like, I think it's somewhere in Maryland or something.
Or something, yeah.
Which is like
Like the guy is like just didn't seem to have any care for the source material. His whole demeanor, like there's some like interview segments where he was like sitting like in a director's chair, you know, facing the camera talking, and then he just kind of mumbled about like what the original is kind of about, and then it ends. This seemed like a cool idea. Like we were pretty excited about it, you know, and we heard that the original film was neat. And there's no life to it. He just seems a little dead inside.
I found it really confusing because Simon Barrett and Adam Wingard are both filmmakers that, or a writer and filmmaker respectively, that I would consider clever based off of You're Next and The Guest. And like Red Letter Media has a really great interview with Simon Barrett about The Guest from several years ago.
Oh, cool.
He seems like a smart, well-read guy who like knows his medium and knows how to write. And those movies would suggest that as well. But all of the behind-the-scenes stuff we watched for this movie made both of those guys look like dumb guys. And that is something that I'm still having like a hard time wrapping my brain around. Like, I don't know what happened to them between The Guest and this movie because they're only like 2 years apart.
Yeah, and all we could do is really speculate at the end of the day because like they could have just done those interviews on at the end of the day when they were exhausted.
And I think I have a little more info with listening to the commentary.
Please, by all means.
I think they were trying to go at kind of a back to basics kind of crowd pleaser.
A return to their roots, if you will.
Yeah. After Blair Witch 2, which we haven't seen, and I don't want to talk about it on this podcast, but that one is not a found footage at all.
Oh.
And it bombed. It did awfully. Everyone hated it. So they wanted to kind of return it to the roots of found footage in the modern day. And yeah, it just did not work. Apparently they reshot over 60% of this movie, not because of studio interference, but just because it turned out really badly.
What?
Yeah, so
60% reshoot.
I think it was just kind of a nightmare shoot.
It seems like from what I was reading, this is a Lionsgate production, and they also bought You're Next, I'm pretty sure. And when they had done that, the studio pitched to these guys the idea for them to spearhead a new Blair Witch film, because apparently that had been sort of like floating around in pre-production since like 2011 or so. So even if like Barrett and Wingard like wanted to do found footage justice, I do still feel like there had to, and maybe the reason they lost their passion and come across as so apathetic in the behind the scenes is because of having to work within the constraints of like a big studio.
Well, it's funny because they explicitly mention that in the commentary. They say, you know, a lot of the critics of this movie say, oh, hey, it must have been studio intervention. And they said, this is the movie we wanted to make.
Don't admit that, guys!
Lionsgate had very little hand in... and let us do what we want with this, which is kind of more damning on them.
Yeah, why would they admit that? Why would they admit that?
They're proud of it.
Wild. Erin, we haven't heard much from you yet. I'd like to get some of your initial read on this film before we start getting into more specifics. How did it hit for you?
Until Ben said it, I didn't even know that there had been a Blair Witch sequel. I guess I just assumed that this was the sequel.
Yeah, same.
To be honest.
Well, this one ignores the events of the second one. So
yeah,
for the purposes of this conversation in the film, like Book of Shadows doesn't matter.
Book of Shadows.
I've never even heard of a Blair Witch 2, which makes me so sad. But initial reactions, oh man, it makes me so disappointed. It's like, I'm not surprised because when a franchise does very well in Hollywood, they're just going to try to capitalize on it and try to like make another one. So I'm not surprised that they tried to make Blair Witch sequels and prequels and blah, 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 video games and shit, but it wasn't great. I feel like I have a very different energy coming into this review than I did like last week when we talked about the Blair Witch, which is fine because it's like both of them are fun and good, but come on.
I think the core problem of this one is for a found footage movie, they have way too many cameras.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have so many cameras that you have tons of different shots and quick cutting and all of this stuff, and it really pulls you out. And combining that with studio actors and actresses who are all pretty, it really takes the realism and rawness of the original and kind of strips it of all of that.
Yeah, this film is very scripted. Very scripted.
It's entirely scripted.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
or it feels entirely.
I mean, it is. It is entirely scripted. Like, they had a full script for it, whereas the original, they had a story and set pieces, but the dialogue was entirely unscripted. It's a very, very stark contrast, and I care much more about people who seem to actually be lost in the woods than Hollywood actors pretending to be lost in the woods.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And that difference in tone is palpable. And like, for the attempts to modernize it they made with like all of the like newer technology we have now, like the drone, the little Bluetooth headset cameras, shit like that, I don't feel like that stuff brought anything new to the film.
No, just more artifice.
Yeah.
And it could have, but one of the big issues too, like, is the even stronger lack of realism. Like, in the original Blair Witch, it was very easy for us to write off that they had brought more batteries along, and that one of the cameras was like hand cranked, maybe. So it's easy enough for us to understand why they could shoot for several days in the woods. Whereas with this one, like, considering all the tech that they had, it made no sense.
And also, like, the time distortion element where it's like, we've been out here for 6 days and the sun hasn't come up. It's like, how are your cameras not dead if you've been out there for 6 days?
Right. And like, their little, like, Bluetooth headset cameras, you know that those things run on, like, hearing aid batteries or something. Like, there's no way that they have that much charge to them. If they even have batteries at all, they're probably wall charge only. Also, all the footage from those cameras is not actually from that model of camera. It's from like no,
it's regular ass cameras.
Yeah. They fake it. So it's just one more like layer of artifice. The house is a set in this one, whereas the original one, it's just a house like in the woods that they found. Yeah. And because of that, it, I don't know, feels like a house in the woods that they found. Whereas this one, like, it's raining and it's all like epic and there's thunder strikes and, you know, the camera is shaky, but beyond that, it's crystal clear and it's very evident that it's grand and that it's artificially made.
The scale is much larger in every regard, and I think it hurts it. Like you said, it makes it too artificial, and also, like, they start giving more rules to the Blair Witch, but also that don't make sense. And there's just like all of these layers added on that don't need to be there, that take away from like the simple, ambiguous dread and tension of the original one.
It makes the first Paranormal Activity look even better in my eyes.
Yeah, for
honestly.
sure.
Like that film does a great job with like the camera quality. I think like it all feels like nanny cams and the rest.
And I think it largely was. And once again, it's an example of like shooting stuff on the actual cameras that are depicted in the film. You know,
and they feel like events that are taking place in that world. They feel fake still in Paranormal Activity, but at least they feel like they're a part of that world and not like just an artificial set piece.
Well, that's why I feel like picking Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett for this was kind of a mismatch from the get-go, because, you know, The Guest and You're Next are very big movies, and especially in regards to The Guest, it's a very campy movie.
Yeah, its strengths are artifice. You're absolutely right.
The core of the original Blair Witch is authenticity. You know, the original, people thought it was real, and that's obviously something you can't do with a reboot, sequel, remake. But I think their tendencies and preferences to go more crowd pleasing and fun kind of works against it in this movie in a weird way.
I could not have put it out myself.
I think I want to expand one thing on quote unquote the rules with Blair Witch, because Simon Barrett was talking about this a bit in
I
the
love some
commentary.
insight.
And not only is there a sequel to the original Blair Witch, the original Blair Witch people did some like pseudo documentaries in the run up to Blair Witch, expanding on the
interesting.
mythos.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they could continue acting like it was real and give it kind of an air of authenticity.
Yeah, I heard about that before.
But they wanted to add some of that mythos and bring it in and expand upon that stuff. And I don't think that was a good call. I don't think explaining more or expanding more was a good idea. I think Simon Barrett made one good point where he was talking about how he wanted to pay off some of the unanswered questions of the original in an interesting way.
Why?
Well, I think there are a couple elements of that where it is fun.
Okay.
Like one example of that, and this is closer towards the end, is...
Whatever.
Yeah, because whatever. Looking into the corner. You know, they take that and in a lesser reboot, they would just have them in the corner and that would be that. Mm-hmm. But at least they try to do something with it.
Well,
you know, the thing they do with it is kind of bad, but...
Yeah, well, the only way they expound upon that is that if you look at the Blair Witch, you'll die. So she's like a Medusa kind of deal, even though people look directly at the Blair Witch. We see the Blair Witch on camera.
You know what the
multiple times in
wildest
the
part of
movie.
that is? Simon Barrett was insistent that that's not actually the Blair Witch.
What? What is it then?
Yeah, what is he trying to say?
Oh my
The
god.
Blair Witch is more esoteric and
Then what was the?
You know?
What is that thing?
Yeah.
it's
Then
a sort of specter or something. I don't
an
know.
aspect
I
of-
don't know. He didn't explain that part.
What like so the Blair Witch is like so like
Come
that's
on.
like the monsters like the sun and the Blair Witch is the Holy Ghost.
And-
like the Blair Witch is the thing like is
Yeah.
the light itself is the Blair Witch, like the realm they've entered. The Blair Witch is a
It's
mindset.
so
Is that what
funny
he's
because
fucking
both
saying? Because
Adam
Jesus
Wingard
Christ.
and
Love
Simon
that
Barrett
here.
were like, yeah, since this movie didn't do well and got panned, we're not going to answer any of those questions.
I respect that at least. I wish they hadn't tried to answer any of them in the movie either. You know what really reminds me of? Is the fucking Han Solo Disney Star Wars movie. Like trying to explain shit that didn't need to be explained, like the Kessel Run and stuff. It's like, no, we never needed to see the fucking Kessel Run. Let it just be a legend and let
Cleveland,
it sit at that.
This
That's all
is
I
an
fucking
anti-Star
need.
Wars podcast.
I know, and I'm
Don't-
saying anti-Star
don't-
Wars things.
don't do this.
But like, I don't know, like it's the same fucking thing. Like trying to explain a lore and give it like more rules and backstory that is absolutely not necessary.
I'm going to continue to refer to that monster as the Blair Witch.
Yes,
though,
because it is.
it's too confusing to try to conceptualize it.
I'm sorry,
Or
the
like
movie's
the
called The Blair
stretchy
Witch.
lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, like here's the thing. The movie's called The Blair Witch. We are never given any reason to believe there is any other monster other than the Blair Witch.
Right.
So what the fuck is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Come on.
I do think it's also worth noting that somebody does have a credit in the film as Blair Witch stunt double, which would be that. Because what
Wow.
else would...
Oh
what,
my God.
There's no...
Yeah,
other-
they were complaining about that on the commentary, actually.
Because somebody
Well-
credited it wrong?
Yeah.
Well, then maybe don't be
That's
so
fine.
fucking vague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Right. Wow. How did they approve that then? If they're like the director, producer,
Maybe have a plan.
how did that get approved in the final edit?
Yeah, I
they're
don't know.
literally just trying to change the narrative.
Yeah, 100%.
But while
Speaking
it's still
of the
in production-
narrative,
No, I bet after the fact. I bet people are like, "That's dumb." There's a it's a
Yeah.
fucking long, stretchy lady, and so Simon Barrett was like, yeah, actually, nope, that's not the Blair Witch. The Blair Witch is more of like an idea."
Yeah, so
You
they get to
can't
have their
see
cake
the
and eat
Blair
it, too.
Witch, but
Yeah.
you do feel the Blair Witch in your heart. So it's
Yeah, it's like, oh man, they showed the Blair Witch multiple times. Oh,
but
that's
actually-
not the
but
Blair
actually,
Witch.
yeah,
Oh, get the fuck fuck out of here.
That feels
fuck
like
out.
that feels like backpedaling to me.
Yes, it does. Also, like, okay, so if that is the Blair Witch, right? It acts like a gorilla.
Yeah,
like
it's
like
got
howling,
it's got
and
long arms.
and like like moving around.
It's hooting and hollering like a
stomping.
spider monkey.
Yeah, and like stomping and shit. What the fuck? And they talk about like in its lore that like she was like stretched up in a tree or something at one point. I don't know. I was a little drunk, but like
I mean, we were talking through most of the exposition in this movie.
yeah, there's so much of it. And it was so bad. Why don't we get into that a little bit?
Yeah, let's get into the story part of
Yeah,
it
it's
a
time.
little bit.
I want to give Erin an opportunity to explain the
Yes.
story of this movie.
Yes, please.
Not to put you on the spot.
Hot
Yeah,
seat.
yeah.
For all our listeners, Erin just took a big old swig of wine.
Yeah, let me take a sip of my wine. Okay,
Much needed.
so basically the scene opens up, or the whole movie opens up with the scene, this guy watching the last scene of the Blair Witch, the original, given a little bit more video, and there's a very blurry, indistinct face that he pauses on, and he goes, dude, I think that's my fucking sister. And so then it launches this whole thing. We're going to try to find my sister, question mark, or
Yeah.
we're going to try to find
Yeah.
the Blair Witch that killed my sister in the woods. And then he assembles this crew of people, and then he gets together with the person who posted the video, which also has nothing to do with like knowing any intel on
And
the
what
Blair
was
Witch.
what was his name?
I'm glad you asked, Matisse. It was Darknet666. It was www.dark.com 666.
Dark.net /666
Dark.
Blair Witch Truth /MAGA.
Yeah. Yeah, so then for some reason, him and his girl get roped into this. So they go into the woods to try. So that's unclear to me. What are they trying to do? Find the Blair Witch again, or find his sister?
everyone has a different
or
motive.
get justice?
Yeah, so our main character, whose name I've forgotten because it's unimportant, he sees the video, and as you said, it's a very blurry frame of like a woman's face in the mirror. You can't actually distinguish any of its facial features.
But what you can distinguish, like, pretty clearly is it's horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, it's monstrous,
And
whatever it is. And he's like, oh, that's my sister.
And
It's
he
probably
points at it,
alive
he's
and
like,
well.
he's like, yeah, I think that might actually be my sister, and because this is on the internet, that means she's still alive, probably. So
Everything I see on the internet is real.
yeah, so his
Yeah,
sister,
exactly.
and these are college students, and it takes place 20 years after the original one, which takes place in 1994. This is set in 2014. So he would have been like an infant, maybe a toddler, when his sister went missing. He's like, yep, this blurry picture is for sure my sister. We're going to go out into the woods and try to find her and this spooky house that she's in.
Yeah.
And this other girl, the pretentious film student girl, decides to turn his search for his sister into a documentary.
Yes.
His girlfriend, which is weird to me because like the guy's sister like wanted to turn into a documentary, you know, like and so you think like he'd follow in her footsteps. Like it makes so much more sense for this, you know, like this one character, right, to be the one who wants to do the documentary aspect of it, you know, to be like his sister. But instead, like, it's his girlfriend who just also happens to do documentary stuff. It's weird to me. It just doesn't feel organic. It feels like, oh, someone needs to be doing a documentary because the original one had a documentary thing in it, which is a lot of that sort of rationale.
They're literally just trying to play into the fact that the original documentarian was a female.
Yeah.
I feel.
Right. It's so dumb.
Which is silly.
Yeah, and can I just say, I kind of hate that they pair them all off
Yep.
into couples.
Because,
Yes.
yeah, they
What the
bring
hell?
along his friend and his friend's girlfriend, and they get Darknet 666 and his girlfriend. So it's
Yeah.
3 couples going into
Yeah.
the woods.
And also, like, every girlfriend is girlfriend. You know,
Yes.
like except for like our protagonist's girlfriend who is also doing
Who
a
is
documentary thing.
documentarian girlfriend.
But even then it's like documentary girlfriend. Like
Yeah.
none of the women have like their own real role other than girlfriend.
and step on a rock and
so
fuck up
true.
my foot
Yeah.
immediately.
Oh yeah,
as
other
soon
than
as
be
we're
a
in the
weakness,
woods.
like to the group. Like what the fuck? No
That's
good.
so true.
And of course, I think the biggest illogical like piece of nonsense around the plot for this is we get footage of mass searches for the sister, the lead from the original film. Like we see like they brought in helicopters, they did big like chain walks through the woods, like just scrubbing through to find anything at all, and it's made clear that no one found anything, and they did their due diligence again with helicopters. And then these 4 college students 20 years later think they might find something?
Yeah. I also want to point out a very minor discrepancy, but does kind of play into that between this and the original. Like, one of the big reasons why them being lost in the first film is so horrifying is because, as Heather points out multiple times, the Black Hills Forest is not very large.
Right.
They're like, yeah, all we should have to do is walk east for a few miles and we'll be out of the woods. And so it's like, then in this movie, they talk multiple times about how big the woods are, how massive the forest is, and how they'll never be able to find anything, and that the helicopters flying around never found the house. And it's like, it's a fucking nitpicky thing, but like, that's what makes the first one so spooky. It's like, they should be able to just get out. But the fact that they keep ending up at the same spot, it's like, ooh, there's magic at work here. There's a sinister supernatural force.
Well, on top of that, it's a completely different forest, too. They shot it on the other side of the continent.
I had to look it up while we were watching the movie because it was driving me crazy, because the foliage is very obviously very different from the original, and they shot the original one on site in Maryland in the mid-Atlantic United States, and they shot this one in British Columbia in Canada, literally on the opposite side of the continent, completely different biosphere.
And of course, because they treated it as like a much larger scale production, it's very obvious that the locations that they're in are like large campsites
And fully packed down paths.
Yeah, like
they're like walking on paths through the woods.
Yep. Like it's very obvious that like there's room for dollies and for them to like bring trailers in, and yeah, like all the earth is well packed. There's machine cut logs like near the campsite. The campfires are all like really well set up. It's very obvious that they came there like and found it. It's not like a random place in the woods that they could only make camp in the original.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything feels fake.
But Cleveland, one of the characters, had a hard time putting his tent together.
That's right.
That scene was so scripted.
These dang millennials don't know how to set up tents
so
with all their fucking cell phones and tablets.
There was like a pause for the audience to like laugh or groan.
And their
too.
laptop
Like it was so
computers.
fake. God, like, and
And
that's all the dialogue in this movie.
They all just stared at him like, are you crazy? You don't know how to set up a tent? And we talked about this when we were watching it together. But like, just fucking help him. Are you kidding me? Anybody who camps knows that like you need to help like anyone who's struggling to put up their tent, because when night falls, it makes it so much more difficult to assemble your tent.
And
so
also,
it's like just fucking help him. He's struggling.
But
like,
Erin,
tents
isn't
are-
it more fun to have dumb protagonists we can kill off?
Tents are basically a no-brainer too. It's like
Yeah.
you should be like, even if you've never been camping before, you could figure out how to set up a tent. Like, it's not that hard. And
He
it's
was
like,
also just like shaking it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's
What?
not gonna like blow up and suddenly like assemble itself. Like, why do you think that?
Like an inflatable.
It was very much a like these dumb millennials don't know how to set up tents.
Yeah, well, from the commentary, one of the big reasons they reshot so much is because they had a lot more comedy written into the script. And with found footage, a lot of that cleverness and comedy just falls flat.
Yeah, because that push is so dependent on editing.
Yeah, well, and it not only that, but it's so hard to make it sound like real people rather than, scripted. And you can get away with that more in a non-found footage movie, but something like this, it just really doesn't work.
This just came to me. They have all these different cameras, right? The drone, the headsets, they're carrying some cameras as well. They have like all these different cameras. And we see through all of them. But spoilers, no one survives. They found all the footage separately. Like all
of their cameras turned up.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, I mean, after the Blair Witch killed everyone, she just like put every one of the cameras in a little bindle and, strolled along to the front of the campsite.
But considering
she
that,
submitted them to Sundance Film Festival.
Honestly, though, because here's the thing, right? Like that would be hilarious, like overblown, but it's kind of not, because the original film and this one both end with the cameras in the house. And the house, according to this one's canon, disappears, right? So the cameras do have to be picked up by someone, put somewhere else so they can be found.
Yeah,
the witch has to
they
have
do
some
kind
control
of
over it.
Abandon it being discovered cameras whatsoever in this movie.
How does the audience get a hold of this film?
Never addressed.
I think they realized, we're not gonna fool people into thinking this may be real. So we'll just not even try.
So why even bother giving any sort of explanation for how this footage is being delivered to the public?
So there's a movie that's actually I think is pretty similar to this one that I adore, and that's Troll Hunter. Because Troll Hunter feels like a Disney ride, and it's very beat for beat, and it still is. It's extremely artificial. They're like Scandinavian trolls, and there's a guy who hunts them like an old knight.
It's awesome.
And it's an amazing movie. And I think, is it just because it's not riding on the coattails of the original Blair Witch?
Probably,
it works?
well, because it's a fresh concept. Everything you've just described is not something that you would expect out of a found footage horror movie. A weird old Norseman going around killing trolls for the Norwegian government.
God, I love that film.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Shout out to Troll Hunter. That's all.
This is the second week in a row you've brought up Troll Hunter,
and it's worth it. I love that film. It might be my favorite found footage movie.
It's a pretty good one. But yeah, I mean, it's just for a movie that's trying to capture the same lightning in the bottle that the original Blair Witch Project was, they didn't do enough different stuff, and the stuff they did different was dumb.
Yeah.
I thought some of it was fun though. I gotta say, some of the stuff they do differently is dumb and it misses the spirit of the original. But I think it's fun in itself. The Forever Night is kind of fun when you don't think about it too much. I think, having the Blair Witch figurines wrapped in Darknet 666's girlfriend's hair and it turning into a voodoo doll. That was super fun.
That was probably the most fun thing that happened in the movie. But it was 5 seconds and then it was over.
If you separate this movie from the franchise and and you just look at it as a dumb film, I agree. I think that the kills and everything are big, dumb, fun moments. And they shit on the original. But, I personally don't have a huge amount of attachment to the original. Last week was the first time I'd seen it. I enjoyed it. But, I don't have that same nostalgia for it and all the rest.
Yeah.
And so, it was much easier for me to do. But I can absolutely respect it being hard to laugh at those things if, you do have, a much deeper care for the original
I mean,
series.
I thought the gross...
Because they were bad. But, God, they're funny.
Weird tree thing that was pulled out of the girl's leg was gross and tactile and fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
fun body horror.
Well, I think what I said when they showed the shot of her foot all messed up is, wow, the makeup people did a great job of it. It looks very studio cool and fun, which, man, is not the right movie for it. But no, it is fun.
Unlike something like The Beach House, which we just talked about 2 weeks ago, which has a scene of somebody pulling something gross out of their foot. With that, we got to sit with that scene. It was so intense and drawn out and non-flinching, and that's why it has lasting impact. Whereas all of the little individual moments in this one, while some of them are fun, they're so fleeting, and then it's back to running through the woods at night.
Yes.
And it's if My problem with like having a hard time separating this one from the original in a way that I can appreciate the fun stuff about this one is that it's not different enough. It still retreads so much of the exact same ground of the 99 one that it's impossible to separate them as entities. Because like they do the entire, pretty much the same events of the entire first film in like the first 40 minutes of this movie. They like compress it. It's like they go out and they spend one night in the woods, and then the next day they spend the whole day like arguing with each other, even though they haven't been lost for that long. And then night falls again, and then it's forever night. It's like they knew that they weren't going to have the respite of daytime every little bit like the first one does, where you have like this distinct kind of difference between the daytime stuff and the nighttime stuff. The daytime is all like the character drama and tension. The nighttime stuff is the scares. It's like, oh, well, we got to throw in all of the character drama into one day because we're going to take away the daytime for the rest of the movie. And I think that is like, while the concept of the forever night is fun, if you don't think about it at all, it hurts the film overall. Or maybe they should have done it earlier. Maybe the first night should have been forever night, and then they do something really different. You know, maybe then I would have been able to separate it.
I have to agree with you, because the forever night idea automatically makes it very unrealistic, whereas like the appeal of the first Blair Witch is that it was like a very realistic, low budget film that was done in a very like, oh shit, these people are in trouble kind of way. Whereas like when you introduce something magical or otherworldly, like a forever night, it automatically takes you out of like the reality of the film, and suddenly the film is not rooted in reality.
And it makes it
definitively
it makes the danger too constantly present. The benefit of the first one is that after each night, they're able to examine the horror that they experienced the night before in the light of day and say, okay, it's daytime, we're safe now, but we have to get out of here today. We can't spend another night in these woods. Every night, something worse happens. And as they near the end of each day, as they recognize that they're gonna have to camp again, and tensions get high and their fear builds, that ebb and flow is just like, it's harrowing for the viewers. And it's like, well, once it's always night, the Blair Witch could be around any corner. And in this movie where she's yeeting tents into the void and not literally knocking trees over onto people, it's like, well, okay, fuck it. They're in danger all the goddamn time. Whatever then, you know?
Yeah, well, the first death we see is that dude getting hit by the tree.
Yeah.
And I do want to emphasize, the first two people that die in this movie are the black couple.
Oh, they did. They did.
They did it. They
God
did the thing.
damn it. Okay, before we move on.
We were like, this is how it's gonna happen. It's so stereotypical, and it makes me so mad.
Yeah, it's such hot bullshit. Before we move on, I did have some other points on that previous, because I do want to just move into the deaths and how fun they are. First off, another way of summarizing those previous points is, I think during the pre-production meetings for this film, they use the word maximize a lot. Like it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it just like the original, but it's gonna be bigger and better. Like, for instance, in the original, like they wake up after the first or second morning, and there are a few of those weird stickmen, sort of weird sigils like hanging from the trees, weird symbols, totems. Thank you, that is the word. There's strange totems hanging from the trees, but there's just a few. Whereas in this one, they wake up the next morning and there's like 40 of them. It's just a quick way to make the viewer feel like, oh yeah, it's like the original, but oh my god, there's 40 totems now. And there is, a later reveal that like there was a prank by the Darknet folks, but
well, not a prank necessarily, but they explain this in the commentary. He was trying to convince them to keep going or something like that. But yeah, basically a prank.
Whether the motive is prank or not, it ends up, it acts as one. And there's a bunch everywhere. And then when the real ones show up, it's even more. It's like several hundred of these things just hanging from the trees. And it takes away... Yeah, it takes away all question of whether or not the Blair Witch is real or not. This movie just takes that idea and just throws it the fuck to the side. So for every time they maximize it, they take the realism just right the fuck out and they just go to hard fantasy. And this whole movie is fantastical. So why do we care? You know, like the same way.
I would call it kind of the VHS effect. This very much feels like one of those VHS segments. Yeah. And one of the ones that doesn't always work perfectly, but it very much fits the mold of kind of a theme park ride. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times, especially in the second half. I agree with you that it definitely retreads the first one in the first half of the movie. Yes. In the second half, I think the movie kind of does its own unique thing, but its own unique thing is just doing a VHS segment in that, you know, it's very much chase sequences and set pieces of deaths and spooky houses. And it doesn't leave you time like the first movie to sit on things particularly. And when it does, it doesn't work at all because it's such a total mismatch of tone.
I did read a quote from Adam Wingard that I think sums up this movie very well. And he said that the original Blair Witch is a movie about being lost in the woods. This is a movie about being chased. Ugh. And it's like, yeah, that's it. You're right. You did it. I mean, not only do I think that it's a bit reductive of the original Blair Witch, I would say what's more accurate is the original Blair Witch is about being hunted and this one is about being chased. And those are very different things.
Yeah. Well, the original one, like, you get the vibe the creature, the entity is playing with its food.
Yeah, it never...
Or it's just crazy locals.
They're never chased in the first movie. Like, they run through the woods, like when their tent is shaken and they take off and run into the woods, but they're never being chased by anything. And this whole fucking movie, once they get into the Forever Night, is constantly about being chased. That's all it fucking is. That gets old extremely fast.
Yeah. And each moment is for the sake of the moment. Yeah. Like it's never about like the arcing plot or how things tie into each other. It is for us as the viewer to be like, oh my God, they've changed how time works. Whoa. And then you sit down and think about it and then it's like, oh wait, so the Blair Witch is like a weird, what? What does that mean for the witch? What is that? What?
So what? How about
the house is a spaceship? What?
Yeah. How about the UFO at the end? Ben, did they explain anything about that in the commentary?
Please.
Well, first off, they didn't say it was a UFO, but also they emphasized that this movie tanked at the box office and got really bad ratings, so they weren't going to explain it.
Fuck off. I don't even think they had a good idea then. I don't think that also just sounds like, yeah, we didn't really know.
They thought it would be cool, like, because it looks cool in X-Files.
Because, that is absolutely the effect that gives, right? Like,
yeah, it's a UFO house.
That it looks like that it's like a UFO.
Yeah, when like they're inside the house and like the bright lights are coming in, or like when they're outside of it and there's the bright light and it's there. Yeah. Like it's like it's like coming in and out of dimensions and shit. Like it's an X-Files UFO situation.
And it's like, yeah, it's not said explicitly, but like the effect is of a UFO. And then you get into like, well, is the Blair Witch an alien then? Like, which opens up an even more convoluted and dumber can of worms.
Yeah. Why? If it's that powerful, why does it give a shit?
It makes me so upset because it contradicts everything that I've talked about in the original Blair Witch. Like, of it being like, it could be a witch, it could be something, it could be an entity. We all kind of debated for a while of like, it honestly could have just been like the locals, like fucking with them. But like this movie tries to, like introduce it as if it's an extraterrestrial being, or
It's explicitly supernatural in this
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
It's a super witch.
It's so weird, and it's like annoying because it feels like it took the entire theme of the first movie and just annihilated it, and was just like, how can we make it into a Hollywood trope that makes some money?
How can we shit all over the legacy
Yes.
of one of the
Just
most
missed the whole point.
defining found footage horror films of all time?
Yeah.
You know what's really funny is in the commentary they were talking about how before they had gotten onto this to make this movie, they had made friends with the original producer and director of the original Blair Witch, and they had gone out for dinner with them and asked them a ton of questions about the original, and I guess they
all
got
of
some
it.
consultation from them. And to see like them,
They're listed as executive producers on the film.
and to see them come out of that consultation and make this is just so baffling. One little set piece I want to talk about a bit in the house is in the basement. There's like a basement under the basement where the tunnels are.
Yeah.
And apparently the tunnels reach out across the whole town or something like that. They said it was like an underground railroad thing or something.
Oh, yeah,
gross.
I forgot.
Wait, did they use that term?
They
Yeah.
did, yeah.
Ooh.
They did set up the
That's a bad term to use.
the tunnels. Well, no, I think they meant literally, because they were saying that there's supposedly a network of tunnels under the house that because it was an old underground railroad.
Oh,
Yeah.
Safe house.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
different.
yeah.
Okay,
So
whatever.
they meant it
All right.
literally, but it's like,
All right.
yeah, it was kind of weird.
It was just an excuse for them to throw the main character down and have like a descent moment. Exactly. Claustrophobia. And
I was gonna say anything in
honestly,
The Descent.
to be completely honest, having her in those tight tunnels was kind of fun. It doesn't make any fucking sense in this movie at all, but I thought the sequence was kind of fun.
Yeah, because we were like,
was
oh, she's
competently
gonna
shot.
get dragged, blah blah blah, and then she like didn't, and we were
she
like,
just-
guessing what was gonna happen. So it was like a good time. I agree.
She
with
spends
you.
like 2 minutes crawling around in there and then ends up back at another part of the house.
Yeah, it really
Right,
just goes
right.
nowhere.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, it was a little silly for sure.
This is cycling back to a previous point that'll lead into the kills nicely, I think. You mentioned Beach House from a few weeks ago, and I think it's a great comparison. With our protagonist in the beach house, like pulling the weird alien like worm from her foot, and how gratuitous it is and drawn out it is, and how it's a good moment for the actress to show her chops. It's an effective scene, and it is effective and horrifying.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I found it effectively funny. Like, it's effectively dumb. I enjoy it for that, and that's how I feel about any of like the big moments in this movie. Like, I got entertainment out of it. I did not get horror. I didn't get quality per se, but I did get laughs, and it did. Yeah, I was giggling, and I had fun making fun of those sequences.
Well, it's a very predictable movie. We called
most of it.
Yeah.
from like early on in the film. We hit so many exact plot points, like 20 minutes before they
Often
happened.
there were so many times where you would guess how something would go, and then I would throw in like my bet, and they would both happen.
Specifically with the pulling the thing out of her foot, the root, because as soon as she like stepped on the rock in the river and cut her foot, I said, that's going to get infected later, horribly infected later. And you're like, nah, she's going to be running around on it in 10 minutes. And we were both right.
Yep.
And she was running around on it 10 minutes later, but then after that, it was also horribly infected with a root.
Yeah. So we have like a good while where she's just walking around on it, and then suddenly it's infected again, and it's much worse. And also, while she was good on it, I did predict slug, like weird thing in foot. Like
It wasn't a slug. It was a vine. It wasn't.
It was like a vine slug, I'm saying, because like it does move. It does move inside. It was like crawling up her foot. We see it like when the boyfriend looks at it, like it does like a wiggle.
They
It's a
joke about
thing.
this
It
in
is
the
a living thing.
commentary that they had a lot of people tell them that they thought it was a slug when they had intended it to just be a vine. So
That's exactly what I said.
But it's a moving vine, and is a moving vine not a
It's
slug?
growing up
no,
her leg.
a moving vine isn't.
I don't know. Aren't slugs just moving vines? Think about it.
No.
No,
No.
Not really think about it though. Aren't vines just moving slugs?
No. No.
One fun point about the effects in this movie that they had talked about in the commentary was all of the effects in this movie are practicals.
Yeah, I believe it.
They're great. They're fun.
Yeah, for better or for worse, you know.
I think the
Yeah.
tents getting yeeted into the void is hilarious and great, and I think it looks fun. It doesn't look real, but it looks like it looks like they had them on cranes, like and like with a tether, and they just
Yeah.
like yeet like just like pulled the spool up
Okay.
and like it flies into the air, which is hilarious and great.
It's not scary.
No, it made me
No.
laugh. Like I loved it, but I thought it was great fun. I would have enjoyed it even more if it wasn't like tied to the franchise.
Well, the goofy looking Blair Witch was practical,
Yeah.
which is fun.
I definitely
believe it.
enhanced though.
No, not at all.
Really?
Yep.
Huh, how about that?
They the only
Kinda looks
CG
like a
was
big rubber suit.
some cutouts, you know, for things like the puppetry with the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Stretchy lady. I found that kind of interesting. You know, I think a lesser attempt at this movie would have just gone easy CG.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
you know.
I always respect the decision to do it practically. I wish that because they obviously don't have any problem with like throwing subtlety completely out the window, I wish we would have at least got to see some of those effects a little bit longer if they're going to go to the trouble of doing them practically.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the pussy leg
Yeah.
effect, we really didn't get a ton of.
No, it's like we
No,
only
show-offs.
get a glimpse of when Darknet 666's girlfriend is like snapped in half when they snap the twig man. We only get like a glimpse of that. Like even when they pull the root out of her leg, like it's out of focus. I think that's why there's the confusion about whether it's like a slug or a worm or something in a root. It's because you can't fucking see what it is. And it's
Yeah.
like if they're gonna go to the trouble of building a big dumb long witch, then like just fucking show more of it, I guess. You know, like if you're gonna say fuck this, we're gonna show the monster.
lane.
Then show the fucking monster, you know? Like
Yeah.
just go for it. Like
I agree. I agree. And again, too, like that's one of the things about Troll Hunter is like they go full on.
yeah.
You know, they go full on.
There's
with
a
the
lot of
trolls.
CG in that movie, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
they do go full
and
on.
it's not even great a lot of the time. And again, I think that's one of the things I love about it. But no, going into this film, like we all knew that it had bombed.
Yeah.
And so like I remember saying like as long as the movie's like dumb fun, like I'll be happy. You know, I'll be satisfied. And for me, it was. I was never left bored with this film. There was always something to like, even if it was bad, at least there was something like to laugh at or to be critical of.
See,
like,
I disagree because I was bored by the film. I was not bored watching it because I had a lot of fun watching it with you guys. It was a lot of fun to make fun of in the moment. I think the film is pretty boring, and I would not want to sit and watch it by myself. And I think that
no.
it verges into dumb fun territory, but doesn't spend long enough there for me to consider this a dumb fun movie.
You kind of wish the dumb fun of the second half was just the whole movie.
Yeah, I know. I do honestly, because
Yeah.
it's like it's hard, I think, to especially now live up to the legacy and capture the same tone of the original Blair Witch. So if you insist on making a new one, don't retread that common ground at all. Do something really different. And if you're gonna like expound upon the mythos and like do a bunch of like weird dumb stuff, then lean into that. Like do one
Yeah.
or the other. This movie felt like it could never decide whether it was trying to just be the Blair Witch Project all over again, or if it was trying to be its own thing. And I think it fails at both.
I think it definitely needed to pick a lane. Like you're definitely right. I do think it is a dumb fun movie, and like not a terrible one either because of like some of the sequences, especially towards the latter half. I don't think it's the best dumb movie. I don't think it's like a great dumb movie like The Room or Troll 2, but I think it is a dumb fun movie.
And
Like,
I agree with you there, Tease. I think the original was so divisive to so many people when it came out. You know, a lot of people thought it was slow and boring, and the other half of people thought it was, you know, just brilliant and one of the scariest movies of all time. And by taking a half measure with this one, you really please neither of the audiences.
Exactly.
You know, you have the diehard fans that don't like the different direction and the dumbness that you're taking with it. And then you have the people who hated the original that don't like all of the mythos of the original
and
that
don't
you're
want to
continuing.
see, and that don't want to see the same shit over
which is the first
again.
half. You're so right. That really sums up all the problems this movie, doesn't it? Just asking, who is it for?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and you know that's the same problem that like the first X-Files film had, right? Like it doesn't cater to people who watched the show, but it also doesn't cater to people who hadn't seen it, or the Dune film.
Yeah, I was good.
Right?
That's what I was
Like,
gonna bring up.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
David Lynch's Dune.
Dune,
film
yeah,
is the
it's
same.
like if you've read the book, it hits enough points for you to remember things, but it doesn't do them well.
It does them badly.
And it breaks enough points for you to be confused by them. But if you haven't seen it, you're lost. Or if you haven't read it,
Yeah.
you haven't read the original source material, you're totally lost. So yeah, no, it's another example of like, who is it for?
I think this movie had really good potential to be a dumb, fun horror movie, and like Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett do fun well. The Guest is a very fun film. And I think that they focus too much on trying to be same but different when they should have really just been different. I think that for what it's worth, like Book of Shadows at least tried to be different. It failed spectacularly, but it tried to do something very different from the first movie.
Well, I think that's kind of its downfall. You know, I think in trying not to be anything like Book of Shadows, doing something different.
Yep.
They fell into the camp of doing too much the
we
same.
got to make sure that this is like the first one, and it's like, but you do that shit so badly.
Yeah, the best way, I think, like from here on out, like if a studio was to try and like do another film,
Oh, but please don't.
like I mean, no, honestly,
They won't.
is
It
don't.
bombed in the box office.
It is don't is the answer.
They'll
but
dust
like,
it off in 10, 20 years.
I like to like ask myself like a tricky question like that, you know, be like, okay, is it possible? Is there a way? Probably not. But if I would think you could do it either as like a found footage film where it's ambiguous again, and you do not title it Blair Witch, but you have small things in there that could imply it's part of the franchise, right?
Maybe.
Like some like maybe in the background of a shot or two there's a stick fetish or something, but you bring in something else, and again, like it's all still done in the same sense of realism, and it feels like it could still fit in that world.
You're suggesting the Blair Witch cinematic universe.
See, I don't even know.
God, you're right. I am. And even then, I think it's the only way I could get any joy out of it. Like, and even then, it wouldn't be great.
I
and it
don't
would be
even know
hacky.
why you're talking about theoreticals of revitalizing the Blair Witch franchise when the games did that.
Yeah.
You know,
True.
the game came out after this movie, like a couple years after. And obviously it did well enough that, you know, they're putting it on VR. It's
pretty critically acclaimed, yeah.
Critically, like, if anything, that revitalized the franchise.
You're right. That's the way to do it. Like whole new medium.
Change the medium, because then you can explore the same themes, but because it's in a different medium, it offers you new possibilities.
Yeah, most definitely.
Y'all, after I watched this movie, I kept getting ads on my Instagram for the fucking Blair Witch game and for like Blair Witch themed things, and I was like, oh God.
You should Twitch.
I'm not
you should,
interested.
You should
No,
Twitch
thank
stream the game.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to play the Blair Witch game, It sounds interesting. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to hate on it.
I'm trying to play it
no.
if I'm being real.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious now, especially after watching this movie.
Well, yeah, because I've heard the game is good, and like we heard this movie was bad, and then watching it confirmed that this movie was bad.
I will be honest. I've heard some mixed reviews. I've also heard some like some stuff in the grapevine, like some critical things as well. But it looks good to me.
It's almost certainly better than this movie.
There's no way. I mean, yeah. It looks competent at least, and I know it involves tree branch monsters, and those could be spooky.
Those could be fun.
Yeah, those could be spooky.
Those could be fun.
Who's to say? But, it definitely seemed like it did well enough to do a VR release and all the rest, and I would love to know myself.
I mean, I'm down to play. To be honest, that type of video game seems like a lot of fun. Like, that point of view is, like, fun and scary and, like, something I would be down to, like, test out.
Yeah, especially in VR to put yourself in the woods.
And, like, that's a good revise that the movie should go in. Like, not like a sequel or like, a revamp. Like, it should be made into a video game. Like, that's the type of direction that makes sense to me.
Yeah, make it an immersive experience for the audience, because like the first film is very much an immersive experience, because of its authenticity. Exactly. So just do a different kind of immersion in that give the audience direct control and let them play it, let them live it. I think that is I just if you want to revitalize the franchise, experiment with a different medium, I think is the way to do it. Do y'all have any other big points you want to hit on this movie?
I kind of wanted to mention how the Blair Witch is a lumberjack.
What?
With its first kill.
Oh yeah, knocks the tree over on the dude.
Yeah, like I love that's my new canon too. Is the Blair Witch is a lumberjack, because like it's such a the tree falls so perfectly. Like it's just like an evergreen that, because again like they shot in like Canada instead. Jesus, like this like big evergreen tree like falling over him. Like it's obviously just like someone on set like felling this tree. Yeah, like I'm pretty sure that shot is like still. Too like it's probably like pretty hard to set up too, considering like falling camera, like falling tree with the camera, like getting it out right.
They were obviously using cranes for other stuff. They were probably using a crane to couldn't do a controlled drop. Like there's
the girlfriend who gets the thing in her foot, like after pulling a giant.
She climbs a tree right after that.
Yeah, so that's where it's going. Like after like pulling a giant like weird tree slug thing out of her foot. And then she climbs a tree like it's nothing.
Yep, to get the drone down, because they keep thinking that the drone is going to help them.
We see her like put like weight into her leg while she's climbing too. Like what the fuck? Oh, and then of course when she gets up to the top of it, and we're still asking ourselves like, why is she trying to get the drone? The drone was felled by assumedly the witch. Yeah. Like the drone is useless. What? Just get out of the woods. Yeah. Why are you like stopping to climb a tree like when you're being chased by what you know is a supernatural force? To get a dumb drone, it's not going to help you. Why are you here? And then she gets the top of it, and like a hand comes like down and scares her to her death.
No, she gets pulled out of the tree by something off camera.
No, didn't we see a hand come down from the top?
No, she gets pulled out of the tree by something. Yeah. And then crashes to the ground. So both she and her boyfriend get tree-related deaths.
Yeah, and mostly off camera, but we do get the fall, which is nice, because I was asking for that. I was like, as long as like we get like a dummy like falling out of the tree here,
they drop
like I'll be happy.
the camera out of a tree. That's always a fun effect, I guess.
The only other major thing I wanted to add was just kind of reiterating Batissa's point of like, if you were trying to do something original, like when we found out that they were like kind of voodoos, kind of not.
They do that once.
What was that about? We were like, that was like a turning point where we were like, oh, okay, this could actually be kind of cool. And then...
Well, it was the most unexpected thing that happened.
Yeah, but then it just kind of fell flat. Like, nothing ever came of that. And that made me, like, really sad, because I was like, dude, like, that had so much potential.
Yeah, nothing came out of any of it. We still don't know why the Blair Witch needs them to die. None of them died in like a big ritual or anything. So why is it hunting them down? It's
No,
not eating them. What does it care?
Yeah, it's the monster doesn't have any kind of motivation. I mean, I guess you can definitely say that there's not like a clear motivation in the first one, but it does
It's a clear
feel,
monster in the first one.
Well, exactly, but it does feel like it has a stronger intent. As you mentioned earlier, Cleveland, it feels like it's like playing with its food, you know? It's like some people wandered into its territory and it's having fun with them before killing them, you know? It's like it feels like an amusement kind of thing. Whereas in this one, there doesn't feel like any sort of real drive to the monster or what it's doing. It's just like they're in the woods and there's this long witch who's running around like a monkey, hooting and hollering and throwing trees on people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's true. We don't get that play with its food vibe with this one.
No, it's just, like, it's exactly as they said. Like, it's a movie about being chased, but, like, not for anything. Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, the first one's about being hunted. Hunting is like a sport, you know? Like, it's not just, like, running after something, you know?
Yeah.
I don't like this movie. Are y'all ready to rate?
One fun bit of trivia before we rate. Since this is a studio movie, they actually made a D-Box version of it. I don't know if you guys know what D-Box is, but it's like where they have the shaky chairs, the moving chairs.
Oh my God.
And I cannot imagine anything that would make me throw up quicker than watching this movie with D-Box.
On a big screen.
Yeah, just all the shaky cams, and on top of that, your chair is shaking.
The chair never stopped shaking the entire movie.
No, thank you.
Found footage movies in general are one of the few genres of film I'll say I think it might be better not on the silver screen. Like, I don't know, like maybe it's just me, but like big shaky camera stuff on a giant screen. Like,
Depends on the found footage movie. Cloverfield was great on the big screen. I would love to see Troll Hunter on the big screen.
yeah, same.
Like, it totally depends on the movie. Something like this, or even the original Blair Witch, like, I don't think the theater medium necessarily changes the experience.
Well, because you want to feel like you're finding the footage in that kind of found footage movie.
I mean,
and if it's presented to you in a big theater, I that there's a certain degree of artifice there as well. I don't know.
I think regardless, when you find footage, that doesn't mean you have to watch it on the camera that it was shot on.
Well, I'm not saying that, but
you can watch it on anything. That doesn't make it any less found. That doesn't make the footage any less found.
Marble Hornets, for instance, you know, like watching it on YouTube, feeling like someone's just uploading it because they found this.
It's designed explicitly,
you know,
as a
so your viewing of it feels like part of the experience itself. You know, like whereas like watching it in like a big movie theater, you know, like you paid a ticket. Like,
but Marble Hornets is also not a film.
Not yet.
It's a YouTube series designed for YouTube with YouTube as the medium. Yeah. So like it's
much like
it's a completely different beast.
Yeah, much like the games, the Blair Witch games. No.
Shall we rate?
Yes, let's do this. I'll go first and we can work our way around. I had a great time roasting this movie with you guys, but objectively this movie is bad and I don't have much of a desire to ever see it again. Even with friends for like a good bad movie night, I have about 5 dozen good bad movies that I would want to put on before this one. It's pretty low on the list. Doesn't do the original film justice, doesn't do enough of its own thing, and the fun moments are too short and too far between for me. I'm gonna give this a 1 out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Damn, a 1.
Okay.
Cleveland.
I'm not giving it a 1. I'm a little torn between a 2.5 or a 3 because still like I really like some of the sequences more than enough to give it a 1. Like I would say and I tend to rate higher generally, but I'm gonna say 3. Like no, I'm gonna say 2.5. All for the kills. Like they're fun and I do appreciate practicals. and they were fun practicals. I wish there was a little bit more with the witch. If we're gonna go the dumb schlocky route, I agree. Like, pick a lane, and I think that 2.53 is a good rating for a pick a lane kind of film.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I were, basing everything on recommending it, I wouldn't recommend people to avoid this, but at the same time, I wouldn't recommend them to go out of their way to see it. So it falls somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I think they do enough fun things, especially in the second half, to keep it from being a bad movie. And I think they have, Wingard and Barrett have enough good instincts to keep it feeling cheap or cynically made. But it's very sloppy, and once again, it's a half measure. It's falling between, paying service and respect to the original and doing something dumb and fun and unique. And because of that, it doesn't really do either one terribly well. I'm going to give this a 2.5 out of 5 as well. If it's on, you're not going to hate it, probably, but you're not going to love it. I don't know.
I think, yeah, watching with friends and like laughing at it is great, but I'd probably rather watch The Room again. Or Troll 2.
Yeah, if it's on,
Troll Hunter.
if it's on, or you have to watch it for your podcast, then you can do worse. But Erin, what would you rate Blair Witch?
Okay, so I'm gonna give this a solid 2. I feel kind of in the same camp as Cleveland and Ben. To be honest, like, it was a really fun experience watching it with you guys. I had a really fun time, and I know we got into like kind of a debate about that afterwards, but like, I do feel like the experience is like definitely like part of the film itself. And honestly, it had an adverse effect because it made me have a whole new appreciation for the original Blair Witch. Because I was like, oh, this is fucking terrible. And this makes me appreciate the Blair Witch a whole lot more. So for that, it honestly like gets a whole nother point for that.
That's a win, actually.
I think so too. This movie does make the original look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does.
I don't think the original needs this movie to look good.
No.
But it does.
It helped make it look better.
It does
for me.
highlight the things that movie does well.
No, I think Erin brings up a really good point. Like, yeah, I think that's great.
Thank you. And like, you just kind of think, okay, you know what the original was getting at, and this like completely like butchers it, and it makes you sad. So yeah, I'll give it a solid 2 because it wasn't great. But I think I mentioned this when we were watching it. Like, if it was a standalone film, if it had just started with the guy being like, seeing this footage and being like, I think that's my sister, and then going off into the woods, it would have been like kind of a fun Halloween horror.
If it was made in a vacuum.
Yeah. Like, if it was like, like if the first Blair Witch didn't exist, it would have been kind of a fun horror. So yeah, I'll give it 2 pods.
Well, that will actually make its average a 2 out of 5. So Erin's picking the average. Yeah, I mean, see it or don't,
Yeah, your choice. Follow your dreams.
Yeah,
It's not worth it. If you don't see it, you're not missing out on much.
Don't watch it. Don't like sit down to watch it by yourself. Like,
No.
if you insist on watching it, like, yeah, have a couple of beers, get some friends together, at least get that kind of energy going, because that does so much of the lifting in making watching this movie a good time.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't do much on its own.
Yeah, if you get joy out of being critical over a film, you're gonna get joy from that.
Yeah,
at least,
this movie does a lot of stuff wrong for sure. Anyway,
or watch The Guest.
Yeah, that's
Just
a way
go
better
watch The
movie.
Guest.
It's a way better movie.
Because that movie you can watch on your own. You can watch it with after a few beers with friends and just have a great time regardless. Like, The Guest fucking rules is, I think, the best moral of the story.
I wanna move into a more fun segment, our hot new segment that everybody is clamoring for. It's time for Pairing with Erin. Erin, What? The look of betrayal on your face.
You've watched
I'm
a
so
movie
flattered.
and had a scaring. It's time for pairing with Erin. Do 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 do.
God, I'm so flattered. This is so.
What wine, in your professional opinion, as a level 1 sommelier, would you pair with Blair Witch 2016?
Hey, that's a great question. Okay, so I have two schools of thought. I would either pair the wine with, like, if you are in the mood to not take things seriously and have a good time, in which case I would pair it with something sweet, like a Riesling. Or if you are like, fuck this horror film, it's a terrible fucking horror film and I'm trying to get drunk, in which case I would pair it with something heavier, like a Shiraz or a Syrah, those are both red wine. So
What
That's my
what price range of wine would you recommend for this? Do you think this is a quantity over quality film? No.
Oh, no. I think you should spend minimum amount of money on this film.
The more wine you can get, the better.
Yes, exactly. So, like, if you're going to spend a box wine,
Wow.
it's going to be
Awesome.
more money up front, maybe $20 if you get a boxed wine, but you're going to get so much more wine for it. So
You can drink the whole box while you watch this movie, and by the end, you won't be any more confused than if you were sober.
Exactly.
Erin, I have a question.
Sure.
For Halloween, have you ever dressed up as a sommelier pirate?
Oh my god. Holy shit.
Because
I have not.
wow.
But that's an incredible idea.
I think that's what
Make
you
up-
have that's what you have to do next year. I know we just passed Halloween. Hopefully we'll have Halloween next year. Hopefully COVID will be done by then. And yeah, you have to be a sommelier pirate.
I don't know, that might be in bad taste, but God, it's funny.
Well, I might cut this out, but just don't wear blackface.
Yeah, I should
No.
probably cut that.
I should
Of
probably
course
cut that.
not. That's so clever.
Yeah.
And
I
I
mean-
love that.
Don't wear blackface is good advice for our viewers. I think that's okay. I don't think you're going to get canceled for saying don't wear blackface.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good life advice.
yeah, just in
advice.
general. Like,
You don't want to
Yeah.
end up like Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, I don't think you should be canceled for talking about it if you're talking about not doing it, that it's bad.
I'm making a joke about it though, which I guess could be considered in bad taste, but whatever.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, Cleveland, do you have a sponsor for us this week?
Yeah, this week is a PSA. Don't wear blackface.
If you keep bringing it up, which means I have to leave it in. I can't edit around all of
No.
this.
I'll do a different one. Are you tired of your Bluetooth camera not having the film quality that you need? Well, instead buy Danon's spectacular shoulder mount cameras and just pretend it's a Bluetooth headpiece.
I thought it was gonna be like a 16 millimeter earpiece, so it still clips to your ear.
Buy
but
Danon's
it's
16 millimeter earpieces as well. They now come in earpiece size. Not conveniently.
Yeah, you just have like a huge, heavy metal box strapped to your ear.
Coming inconveniently to a camera store near you. I'd say a Radio Shack, but that's actually coming.
Radio Shack
coming,
still exists.
Do they?
No.
Do they?
Yeah, I thought they all died.
Yeah, I think
they're
they-
gone.
I think there's still Radio Shacks. It's Circuit Cities that are all.
No, I think
No, I
both
think
of them
they
closed
both they're
down,
both
yeah.
gone. Yeah.
Could have sworn I saw a Radio Shack at a strip mall recently.
Well, we're not gonna look it up. So coming maybe to a Radio Shack, maybe not near.
You know what? If they don't exist anymore, even better. Definitely coming to
To a Radio Shack, the most
near you.
inconvenient way to get this camera.
Thanks, Danimals.
Yeah. No. Yep. No. But yep.
So, Cleveland,
What's up?
what movie are we covering next
Oh
week?
shit! I mean, yeah. So I made a joke about it last week, and
no.
I didn't think that we were actually going to do it, but then I saw that Netflix just added it, so it's topical. And I think we actually... Oh my god, I see how angry y'all are getting at this. Maybe we shouldn't do Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, but...
It's your choice.
Like,
it's your
Your
choice.
choice.
I haven't watched it since I was a kid, and I do want to watch it again to find out. Like, Erin, you have a fun expression on your face. What do you think about that? Let's put it...
I am so excited. Are you fucking kidding me?
Do you want to join us?
We have to do it, though.
Please, like, so that I'm not the only person excited, because that would be great. Do you want to? You are
Do you want to
totally
come back
welcome.
3 weeks in a row?
Please, yeah.
No way. Oh my god. That was like a huge... I'm just saying, that was a huge staple in my childhood.
Same. That's why I want to cover it.
I mean, mine too. I just am legitimately a little bit scared at how I'm going to talk about Scooby-Doo critically.
Awesome. Yes. Okay. No, it's definite. It's a definite choice for me then. God, if I was ever, yeah, sure. Yeah, we're doing Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, folks.
Oh no.
Yes. Deal with it.
Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. Oh my god. That
Erin, if
was
you want to
like...
leave it tentative, you are welcome.
Yeah, open
You are
invitation.
absolutely
If you
welcome
want
to come
if you
back.
want to come back next week and talk about Scooby-Doo, you can.
I honestly might take you guys up on that. It was honestly like, I don't want to say it was kind of scary, but it was like one of those things when I was a little kid that was like the first taste of like, oh, like this is what
Yeah.
spooky things are.
It was the scariest of the Scooby-Doo movies.
It
Well-
honestly was.
Well, let's save the discussion for next week, because I guess in a Pod People First, we're talking about an actual children's movie.
No.
We've done Dark
Labyrinth.
Crystal.
We did
Dark
Dark
Crystal.
Labyrinth.
Yeah,
We
we
did
did Dark Crystal.
Not
We did do
yet,
We
anyway.
did do Dark Crystal, but Dark Crystal in ways kind of bridges the gaps because of like the scary puppets and stuff. Whatever.
The
We're
artistry
doing,
of it.
We're doing a fucking cartoon, a fucking children's cartoon next week
Awesome.
on Pod People for the first time ever. Jesus
Honestly,
Christ.
like, I think that's kind of fun because I used to nanny two boys, and one of their favorite movies was like the Goosebumps remake with Jack Black.
Oh yeah.
And so I watched it with them, and it's honestly like pretty good.
Is it?
And I think it's like it's funny and clever, and like I think it's like pretty good. I think if I was a kid watching it, I think I would be kind of spooked. And like I actually think it's like very difficult to make kids feel scared in like a PG way, you know? So I don't know. I think like kids horror is like very interesting. So like, yeah, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Rad. I'm so glad you could help validate
about
that.
it.
I really appreciate it, Erin.
Like Cleveland, like I am all about this choice. I think it's cool. I think it gives a lot of representation to like a younger audience, and I'm here for it. So
Oh God, I hope kids are not listening to
No,
this.
no, they shouldn't be. I agree. I agree. But I think it like
We have made
it's a
so
subject
many
that's
cum
worth talking
jokes.
about.
What's up, fellow kids?
Oh, yeah.
You can't see me, but I'm flossing right now.
Oh yeah.
I'm about to play some Fortnite and what do the kids?
Fortnite.
TikTok. I'm about to TikTok all over this
Yeah,
podcast.
go TikTok some Fortnite
Are the
dances.
kids still whipping and nay-naying?
Oh no.
Are the
they're
kids
not.
still doing that? Okay, I'm gonna end this thing. If you like the show, please go on to Apple Podcasts. Please. My family needs this. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and a nice review. Share an episode with your friends. Follow us on Twitter at PodPeoplePod.
Yeah, maybe have a few beers and make fun of us.
Yeah, that's cool.
You're welcome to. We don't mind.
In fact, I expect it.
Yeah, please be critical of us. You know,
yeah,
that's allowed.
absolutely.
It's a two-way street.
You can also check out our Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/podpeoplepod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. I'm on Twitter at Some Spooky Snake. I forgot my handle for a second.
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
Well, I'm always flying off my handle. literally or metaphor, whatever. But point is, you can sometimes check out my tweets for Light Arc Studio as we talk about It Stares Back and our current development thereof. Check us out. We're on Steam in early access. We've got a new chapter coming out soon called Tower Call. We just released a cool trailer for it. Go check it out. And you can also find my work on ArtStation. Go search my name, Cleveland Mosier, and look at some cool spooky paintings and stuff and enjoy yourself. And you have a wonderful night.
Thanks.
That's just from me to you.
Erin, where can the people find you?
I recently launched my own website, erinvalusek.com, so you can find me there. And I am a freelance copywriter and content writer, and I also host virtual wine tastings. So if you want to set yourself up with a virtual wine tasting, I completely cater the whole thing. I just have you fill out a short survey.
And why wouldn't you want to?
Exactly. It's a good time.
I know I want to.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a fun thing to do in quarantine. Looking for new things to do. It's filling up pretty fast. So
Nice.
it's pretty fun.
Well, speaking of fun, this Blair Witch 2-parter was very fun. And I very much appreciate you joining us again for this, Erin. And like we said, open invitation for Scooby-Doo next week. It's up to you. If you got the time and the desire, you can join us.
Okay, I will let you guys know because it's honestly such a staple in my childhood. I'm not gonna lie. I've watched it several times.
Heck yeah.
All right. Well, I'm hearing a lot of audio interference. I hope that's not going to be in the actual recording. If it is, it's the Blair Witch getting to us. So let's sign off before it gets too terrible to listen to. Bye-bye.
Bye.